The ground is shaking, and it is not thunder. Something enormous is moving toward your line through the dust, and the man beside you has stopped breathing. You are 19 years old. You have marched across the sea to Africa, and you have never in your life seen an elephant. Now there are 80 of them coming straight at you. It is a bright, dry morning in the spring of 202 BC, on a plain in North Africa near a town the Greek historian Polybius calls Zama, only a few days' march from the gates of Carthage itself. You are a Roman legionary, and the man commanding the army in front of you has been beating Roman armies for 16 unbroken years. His name is Hannibal. For your whole childhood, mothers frightened children with that name. He crossed the Alps with elephants. He drowned a Roman army in a lake at Trasimene. At a place called Cannae, he surrounded and killed nearly 50,000 Romans in a single afternoon. The worst day in the history of your people. Your father may have died there, and now here you stand, in the front rank, waiting for him to do it again. But something has changed, and you know it. For years, Rome only ran from Hannibal. Then a young commander did the unthinkable. Instead of chasing him around Italy, he sailed the war to Africa, to Hannibal's own home. He burned the enemy camps in the night. He beat their armies on the Great Plains, and he forced Carthage to do the one thing 16 years of Roman blood never could: call Hannibal home. After 15 years on Italian soil, the great general was recalled to defend his own city. He did not want this battle here. Neither, if you are honest, do you. You barely slept last night. You have heard the story passing man to man down the line, that yesterday your general rode out and met Hannibal face to face. Just the two of them and their interpreters between the armies. Polybius says they stood in silence for a long moment, each measuring the other before they spoke. Hannibal offered peace. Your general refused. There was nothing left to say. Whatever happens now happens here, on this dirt, this morning. You are a Hastatus. That is the name for the young men who fight in the first line, the ones sent forward first because they are the most expendable. Behind you stand the princeps, men in their prime, and behind them the triarii, the grizzled veterans, who kneel with long spears and only fight when everything else has failed. There is an old Roman saying for a desperate hour: it has come down to the triarii. You pray it does not come to that today. In your right hand is a pilum, a heavy throwing javelin with a soft iron neck that bends on impact, so it cannot be thrown back at you. On your left arm is the scutum, a tall, curved shield of layered wood and hide as long as your body. At your hip hangs the gladius, a short stabbing sword built not for heroic swings, but for close, ugly, efficient killing. But none of that stops an elephant. You look down your line and something is different. Normally the maniples, the small blocks of 80 to 120 men that make up the legion, stand staggered like squares on a game board, each front block covering the gap in the line behind. Today your general has done something no one has seen before. He has lined the maniples up directly one behind the other, front to back, leaving long open lanes running straight through the whole formation, from the front rank all the way to the rear. Your general is Publius Cornelius Scipio. Later, Rome will call him Scipio Africanus, the man who beat Hannibal. He is young for a commander, and he has spent years in Spain studying how Hannibal fights, losing to him, watching him, learning him. Right now, he is just the voice that has arranged your death in a strange new shape and told you to trust it. Do you understand what those lanes are for? The elephants are close now. You can see the men riding them, the towers of dust, the tusks the length of a man's arm. In front of your line stand the Velites, the light skirmishers. The poorest soldiers, boys with a handful of javelins and no armor, whose job is to run at the beasts and torment them. Your throat is dry, your grip on the shield is slick, and then Scipio's plan comes screaming out of every throat in the legion at once. The cornu, the great curved war horns. On command, every trumpet and horn in the Roman army blasts at the same instant. A wall of brass noise thrown directly into the faces of the animals. Elephants panic at sound they do not understand. Some of the beasts wheel in blind terror and stampede sideways, straight back into Hannibal's own cavalry on his left wing, tearing his own line apart before the battle has even truly begun. The rest come on! And now you learn what the lanes are for. The Velites give ground on purpose, drawing the charging elephants into those open corridors. The beasts thunder down the empty lanes between the blocks of men, through the army, instead of into it, while javelins rain in from both sides. It is not magic. Some men are still too slow. Some are trampled, crushed, screaming under those feet, and you will hear it for the rest of your life. But the great wave that was meant to shatter you has been split, bled, and led away out the back of the formation. The elephants are gone. You are still alive, and now the real fight begins. The lines close. You hurl your pilum, brace behind your shield, and step into Hannibal's first line. His mercenaries, Gauls and Ligurians and Balearic slingers, hard men fighting for pay, many of whom have never lost a battle in their lives. The killing here is close enough to smell. Sweat, blood, loosened bowels, the iron tang of it all. You stab low, under the rim of the shield, the way you were drilled 1,000 times, again and again, and the ranks feed forward over their own dead. But Hannibal has built his army in 3 lines, and he has built them to grind you down in turn. Behind the mercenaries stand the citizen levies of Carthage and Africa, fighting for their own homes and families a few days' march away, and far behind them, held back, rested, and untouched, wait his best, the veterans who followed him all the way from Italy, the men who have never once been beaten in the open field. Each line you break costs you blood and sweat and formation. Every time you push forward gasping, a fresher enemy is standing in front of you. By the time you reach those Italian veterans, both armies are spent, the ranks tangled, the dead heaped in a low wall between the living. The whole battle grinds to a dead standstill. 2 exhausted lines, locked shield to shield, and neither one breaking. This is the moment the entire war balances on. One push either way, and it is decided. And then you hear it behind them. Hooves! Thousands of them! Earlier that morning, the Roman and allied cavalry, led by Scipio's officer Gaius Laelius and by the Numidian prince Massinissa, a former ally of Carthage who had switched to Rome's side and brought thousands of horsemen with him, chased Hannibal's outnumbered cavalry clean off the field. That was the plan. Not to kill them, but to draw them away and then come back. Now they have come back. They crash into the rear of Hannibal's veterans, exactly as Hannibal himself once did to the trapped Romans at Cannae. The most famous trap in military history has been turned around and handed back to the man who invented it. The line collapses. What follows is not a battle anymore. Polybius records that around 20,000 Carthaginians died on that field, and nearly as many were taken prisoner. Roman and allied losses were counted in the low thousands. Hannibal himself escaped with a handful of riders and rode hard for Carthage to tell his own city, plainly and honestly, that the war was lost. And it was. Within a year, Carthage accepted Rome's terms, and they were crushing. It surrendered almost its entire war fleet. Livy describes the captured warships burned in sight of the city. It agreed to pay 10,000 talents of silver over 50 years. It gave up its empire in Spain and swore never again to wage war without Rome's permission. The Second Punic War was over. Rome had no rival left in the whole Western Mediterranean. You were one man in the first line. You do not know yet that this single morning ended the last real challenge to Rome in the Western world and set your city on the road to an empire that would one day swallow the entire sea. You do not know that Hannibal, the name from your childhood nightmares, will spend his last years hunted from court to court and will finally swallow poison rather than be dragged back to Rome in chains. You do not know that 2,000 years from now, people who have never held a sword will still study this exact patch of dirt to understand how power is won and lost. You do not know any of it. You only know that the ground has stopped shaking, that it was never thunder, that 80 elephants came for you at dawn, and somehow, against every childhood nightmare that ever bore the name Hannibal, you are still standing when the dust finally settles.